Austin was getting ready for work and his date with Georgina, when a car unexpectedly pulled up outside, unnoticed by him. "Isn't that Mother?" he thought. Recognizing the car, Austin's eyes widened as he watched his mother and Sophia step out of the car. "What in the world?" he muttered, his mind racing. "Austin, dear!" his mother exclaimed, her voice dripping with determination as they walked into the living room. "Mother, you didn't tell me you were coming," he muttered, walking over to peck her cheeks, but she shunned him off. "I see you're still living in this grand house all alone. When are you going to settle down and give me grandkids?" she asked, narrowing her eyes at him. "Mother, we've talked about this. I don't need your interference in my life." Austin's face twisted in frustration. "Interference? Ha, I'm your mother. It's my duty to ensure you're happy and settled. And Sophia here is your wife after all," she muttered, leaving no room for argument. Sophia smiled sweetly, her eyes sparkling with amusement. Austin's eyes narrowed at her. "Mother, you can't just barge in here and dictate my life," Austin protested, his voice rising. "I can and I will, Austin. You're not getting any younger, and I want grandkids before I die. Sophia, dear, please take your bags to the master bedroom. You'll be staying there from now on." His mother's expression turned stern. "You can't do this, Mother. This is my life." Austin's face turned red with anger. His mother's eyes flashed with determination. "Watch me, Austin. You two will leave in this house as husband and wife, and I'll be waiting for those grandkids." Austin's eyes widened in disbelief as Sophia obediently picked up her bags and headed towards the master bedroom. "You can't be serious, Mother," he exclaimed, his voice echoing through the hallway. "Dead serious, Austin. You two need to work on your relationship and start a family. I won't leave until I see progress." His mother stood firm, her arms crossed over her chest. "This is ridiculous. I can't believe you're doing this." Austin's face turned beet red with frustration. Sophia poked her head out of the bedroom door, a sly grin spreading across her face. "Hey, Austin, why don't you show me around the house? I want to get familiar with my new home." Austin's eyes narrowed at her, but his mother intervened before he could respond. "Good idea, Sophia. Austin, show your wife around the house, and then we'll have a nice family dinner to catch up." Austin's face turned red with anger as he glared at his mother and Sophia. "You know what? I've had enough of this," he exclaimed, his voice trembling with rage. "I can't believe you're doing this, Mother. You're always interfering in my life, and I've had enough." He stormed over to the entrance hall, grabbed his briefcase, and headed for the door. His mother took a step forward, her eyes flashing with concern. "Austin, don't go. We need to talk about this." But Austin was beyond reasoning. He flung open the door and strode out into the morning sunlight, leaving his mother and Sophia staring after him in shock. "Austin, come back!" his mother called out, but he ignored her and kept walking. As he marched down the driveway, Austin felt a sense of liberation wash over him. He was finally standing up to his mother and taking control of his life. Sophia watched Austin storm out of the house, a mix of emotions on her face. She turned to Mrs. Okoye, who was watching the scene unfold with a calm expression. "Austin, come back," Mrs. Okoye called out, but he was already gone. Sophia sighed and walked over to Mrs. Okoye, her eyes pleading. "Mother, I think I made a mistake. He's not ready for this," she said. "Don't worry, dear. This is just a minor setback. Austin will come around. He's just stubborn like his father." Mrs. Okoye placed a reassuring hand on Sophia's shoulder. Sophia looked uncertain. "But What if he doesn't? What if he leaves me here and never comes back? Mrs. Okoye's expression turned stern. Sophia, this is your home now. You're Austin's wife, and you belong here. He'll come back, and when he does, we'll work on fixing this marriage. Sophia nodded, looking unconvinced. Mrs. Okoye's eyes narrowed. Sophia, trust me. I know my son. He's not going anywhere. He'll be back and we'll make sure you two work things out. Sophia sighed, looking hopeful. You think so, Mother? She asked, and Mrs. Okoye smiled. I know so, dear. Now let's go inside and get settled. We have a lot of work to do. Georgina sat beside her grandmother's hospital bed, tears streaming down her face. Grandma, please get well, she begged, clutching the elderly woman's frail arms. Child, don't cry for me. This is my fate. I'm grateful to have seen you grow into a beautiful young lady. I only hope you find a good man to settle down with. Her grandmother's weak voice filled the room. No, Grandma, don't talk like that. You'll receive the best care, I promise. Georgina's tears fell harder as she protested. Her grandmother's eyes filled with a mix of sadness and resignation. But child, how will you afford it? Georgina, please, let me stay here until my time comes. I don't want to burden you. Grandma, please be positive. Don't talk like that, please. You're all I have left. Georgina's voice cracked as she pleaded. As Georgina stepped out of the hospital, her eyes fixed on the road ahead, she didn't notice the black car parked across the street. The driver's gaze was fixed on her, but she was oblivious to the danger lurking nearby. I see you've visited your grandmother, Georgina, yet you're still resisting marriage to Austin. We share a common goal, and I'll stop at nothing to achieve it. You, Georgina, are the key. The stranger's voice was low and menacing, though Georgina couldn't hear it. The car remained parked, its occupant watching Georgina as she walked away from the hospital, unaware of the sinister eyes following her every move. Georgina entered her home, looking troubled. Sarah noticed her distress and asked, Hey, what's wrong? You look upset, she asked, and Georgina sighed. It's my grandma. Her situation is getting worse, she said, and Sarah offered a sympathetic pat on the back. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope she recovers soon, Sarah said, her voice filled with concern. Yeah, me too. I'm just tired and worried. Georgina nodded. Her phone buzzed, interrupting their conversation. Georgina's eyes widened as she read the message. What's wrong? Sarah asked, noticing her friend's alarm. Nothing. I'll be right back. She forced a smile, trying to downplay her concern. Are you sure you're okay? You can tell me. Sarah looked suspicious at her, but Georgina shook her head. I'm fine, really. She quickly exited the room, leaving Sarah looking confused. Who had texted her? Sarah thought, darting her eyes at the closed door. As she closed the door behind her, Georgina's heart raced with anticipation and fear. What does Ken want? She thought to herself. Georgina stepped out of her house, and she met Ken leaning against his car, a sarcastic smile spreading across his face. What are you doing here? Georgina asked, her voice firm but wary. To see our beloved soon-to-be bride, Ken replied, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Georgina raised an eyebrow. I don't get you. Ken's smile grew wider. I hope you haven't forgotten about our agreement. You're to meet with Austin today. Do not fail me, or your grandma will suffer the consequences. Georgina's eyes narrowed. Why are you doing all this? What do you stand to gain? She said, and Ken's expression turned cold. Shut up. You don't know anything. Do your part and leave the rest to me. Austin mustn't suspect anything. Georgina scoffed, but her voice trembled slightly. "Leave me alone, Ken. You're cruel," she yelled, and Ken chuckled. "You're Princess Georgina. Princesses don't yell. Now make that face beautiful and walk back in. We don't want your friend suspecting anything." He winked. "How did you know I have a best friend?" Georgina's eyes flashed with anger. "I did my homework well, Georgina. I know all about your little friend Sarah. Remember our agreement and make sure you look your best." Ken laughed. "You're disgusting." Georgina's face reddened with anger. "Hey, I'm just keeping it real. You're in this too deep, Georgina. You might as well enjoy the ride," he said. Georgina's voice was laced with venom. "I'll never enjoy being blackmailed by you." Ken's smile grew wider. "Ah, but you will. You'll do exactly as I say, or else, and I always get what I want." With that, he got into his car and drove off, leaving Georgina looking worried and trapped. "I am doing this for you, Grandma," Georgina thought aloud as she stared around the street with a sigh. Unbeknownst to Georgina, Sarah had been watching from the window. Her curiosity piqued. Though she couldn't quite make out the conversation, she sensed a strange intensity between Georgina and the mysterious stranger. Who is that? Sarah wondered, her mind racing with possibilities. Could it be Austin himself? Has Georgina gotten entangled with some wealthy and powerful figure? She continued to stare at Georgina, her expression a mix of confusion and suspicion. As evening fell, Georgina was working at the bar, her mind preoccupied with the earlier encounter with Ken. Her thoughts were a jumble of anxiety and unease. Just then, her phone rang, and Austin's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, Georgina. Where are you?" "I'm on my way to the restaurant we agreed on," Austin said with a low and serious voice. "I'm at work. I will be right there now," Georgina replied, trying to sound casual. "See you soon," Austin said curtly, hanging up without another word. Georgina's heart raced as she quickly sought permission from her boss and hastened to the restaurant. Later on, Austin's eyes lit up as he walked into the restaurant, scanning the room for Georgina. He spotted her sitting at a table, looking stunning in a red dress, and his heart skipped a beat. "Hey, you look amazing," Austin said, taking a seat across from her. Georgina smiled, her eyes sparkling as she stared at the handsome guy seated beside her. "Thanks, Austin. You don't look so bad yourself." As they perused the menu, Austin couldn't help but notice the way Georgina's hair fell in loose waves down her back. He found himself wanting to reach out and touch it. "So, Georgina, tell me more about yourself," Austin asked, trying to focus on the conversation. But just as Georgina began to open up, Ken's text message popped. "Remember, Austin, you're only doing this for your family's sake. Don't get too caught up in the charm of the beautiful Georgina." Austin's eyes snapped back to Georgina, who was looking at him expectantly. He forced a smile, trying to shake off the feeling of unease. "Sorry, what were you saying?" he asked, his mind racing with the weight of Ken's words. Georgina's eyes narrowed slightly, as if she sensed something was off. "I was telling you about my passion for art," she said, her voice measured. "But it seems like you're a million miles away, Austin." Austin shook his head, trying to clear the cobwebs. No, I'm here. I'm listening." But his eyes kept drifting back to Georgina's hair, and he couldn't help but wonder what it would feel like to touch it. "She looks a lot beautiful than Sophia." He shook his head from his thought when he remembered the reason why he was here in the first place. Austin's intense gaze, locked onto Georgina's, his voice low and serious. "You know why you're here, don't you?" Georgina nodded, her eyes fixed on his. "I think so," she whispered. Austin pulled out a folder from his briefcase and slid it across the table. Good. Let's get down to business. Georgina's eyes widened as she opened the folder, her face pale. What is this? She asked, her voice trembling. The terms of our agreement. You'll be my contracted wife for a set period, until I can placate my mother. Then we'll divorce, and you'll receive a monthly payment as long as my mother remains unaware. Austin replied calmly. Georgina nodded, her mind racing. I'm doing this for my grandmother, she thought, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. Austin's expression remained stern, his eyes never leaving Georgina's face. I want to make it clear that this is a business arrangement, nothing more. You will be compensated generously, but I expect you to fulfill your duties as my wife, at least in public. Georgina's eyes scanned the documents, her mind racing with the implications. She felt like she was selling herself, but the thought of her grandmother's medical bills and Ken's threats kept her focused. I understand, she said, her voice barely audible. Austin nodded, his face softening slightly. Good. I'm glad we understand each other. He paused, his eyes narrowing. But remember, Georgina, this is a secret. No one can know the truth. Georgina nodded, feeling a shiver run down her spine. Austin leaned in, his voice taking on a serious tone. Georgina, you'll be meeting my mother soon. She's particular. Just be yourself, and we'll get through this, he said, and she nodded without muttering a word. She was trapped in a web of deceit, but she had no choice. She was doing this for her grandmother, and she would see it through, no matter the cost. Later at night, Austin and Ken sat at the bar, sipping their drinks. Thanks for being here, Ken. I really need your support on this, Austin said, his eyes serious. Of course, man. I'm always here for you. So, tell me more about this proposal, Ken replied, his eyes curious. Austin leaned in, his voice low. I need to make this marriage look real, at least for a while. My mother can't suspect a thing. Ken nodded with an understanding expression. I get it, and I'm here to help. We'll make this work, together. Austin's expression turned concerned. There's something else, Ken. My mother brought Sophia to the house with her luggage. I know they're still there, trying to play matchmaker. He chuckled, and Ken burst out laughing. Oh man, that's rich. Your mum is really trying to hook you up, huh? It's not funny, Ken. I'm serious. Austin rolled his eyes, and Ken chuckled. Come on, Austin. Lighten up. We'll make this work. We'll make your mum think Georgina is the love of your life. You're something else, Ken. Austin shook his head, smiling despite himself, and Ken grinned. Hey, that's what friends are for. Now let's get back to the plan. We have a fake marriage to pull off. Nighttime. Austin walked into the house, his eyes heavy with tiredness. He had spent the entire day going up and down. All he wanted was a hot shower and a good night's sleep. But as he entered the house, he was met with a sight that made his blood boil. Sophia, the woman his mother was trying to force him to marry. Austin's eyes narrowed as he watched Sophia lounging on the couch, her legs propped up and a bowl of popcorn beside her. She seemed entirely too comfortable in his home. Where is my mother? He asked gruffly, his voice betraying his annoyance. She's upstairs, darling. Sophia's gaze flickered to him, a bright smile plastered on her face. Austin's eyes lingered on her, his expression unyielding. He didn't like the familiarity with which she addressed him, or the way she seemed to be making herself at home. As he turned to leave, Sophia called out, Freshen up, my love. I made your dinner already. Then, once you're done, we can move on to the bedroom to make those grand babies for your mother. She winked at him, her eyes sparkling with a sensual smile. Austin's jaw clenched, his eyes fixed on her without uttering a word. He felt a surge of annoyance at her forwardness, and a sense of unease at the way she seemed to be manipulating his mother's desires. He turned and climbed the stairs. Austin walked into his mother's room with a stern expression on his face. "Mother!" he called, his voice firm. "My son, you're home. Have you freshened up? Sophia made dinner," she said, her eyes gleaming with a hint of triumph. "I'm not interested. Why is that lady still in my house?" Austin's eyes narrowed. His mother's smile faltered for a moment before she regained her composure. "Sophia is your wife, Austin. You need to get used to having her around," she said, and Austin's voice rose in disbelief. "Authorized by who? I never got married to her. Tell her to leave my house this instant." "Why? So I can die without holding my grandkids. You're being stubborn, Austin. Sophia is a wonderful woman, and she's perfect for you." His mother's eyes flashed with anger. Austin's frustration boiled over. "You will have grandkids, but not with her. Send her out, or I will do it myself." His mother's face reddened, her voice rising to match his. "Why are you being so unreasonable, Austin? What's wrong with Sophia?" "Because my wife will be coming over tomorrow, and I don't want to see that lady in my house first thing tomorrow morning." Austin's response was immediate. The room fell silent, his mother's eyes widening in shock. "Your wife? Austin, what are you talking about?" "Georgina, my real wife, the one I'm going to spend the rest of my life with." Austin's jaw clenched, his eyes blazing with anger. But he had to do this to keep his mother off. "What are you saying, Austin? Sophia is your wife, the lady I got married for you," she yelled. Austin's eyes blazed with anger as he confronted his mother. "You're still trying to force this fake marriage on me. Sophia is not my wife, and I'll never accept her as one," he said. His mother's face hardened, her voice cold. "You're being foolish, Austin. Sophia is a brilliant choice, and you'll come to see that. She's already moved in, and she's not leaving," she yelled, and Austin's voice rose, his fists clenched. "I don't care what you say. I'll never live with that woman. And as for children, I'll have them with Georgina, my real wife, not some stranger you're trying to manipulate me into marrying." His mother's eyes flashed with anger, her voice venomous. "You're making a huge mistake, Austin. You'll regret this decision for the rest of your life. Sophia is the perfect woman for you, and you're throwing her away for some nobody." Austin's face reddened, his eyes blazing. "Mother is not a nobody. Georgina is the love of my life, and I'll never let you or anyone else come between us. You're just trying to control me, like you always do. But I'm done with it. I'm taking back my life, and I'm starting with Georgina." With that, he turned and walked into his room, leaving his mother's stunned expression behind. "Austin, don't be ridiculous," his mother called after him. But he ignored her and slammed the door to his room shut. He paced back and forth, his mind racing with frustration. How could his mother do this to him? Trying to force him into a marriage with someone he didn't love, just to satisfy her own desires for grandchildren. He stopped pacing and looked around his room, feeling a sense of unease. Sophia's presence in his home felt like an invasion, a violation of his personal space. He walked over to his phone and dialed a number, his eyes fixed on the door as if expecting Sophia to burst in at any moment. "Georgina, it's me. You'll be meeting with my mother tomorrow. Please get prepared," he said with a low and urgent voice. He listened for a moment, his eyes narrowing as he listened to Georgina's response. "Good. I'll see you then," and he hung up, sitting on the bed with a sigh. The battle lines were drawn between him and his mother, and only one of them would come out victorious. To be continued. Stay tuned for the next episode. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tales by African Sage. Make sure you turn on your notification so that you will be the first to know whenever we post a new video. Also follow us on Facebook. Please kindly like, comment, and share our videos. That is a way to show us love and support. Stay positive and optimistic. Don't give up on your dream. It will surely come to pass. We love and appreciate you.